Well, hey, thank you so much for joining us back here on The Pathway. This is just another step along in the journey. And today we are going to be talking with my buddy Sam here as we talk about just the importance of having people in your life, especially for those who are not yet followers of Jesus. But Sam, as we get ready to have this conversation, man, I would love just to platform you for a second and allow you to let people know who you are, besides for being the expert builder and all that kind of stuff that you are. So
awesome. Thanks for having me. My name's Sam D'Elia. I'm a father of 5 kids. So I got 4 girls and 1 boy. And I grew up playing a lot of athletics, a lot of sports, pretty much 5 or 6 different sports growing up as a youth. My father was a mason contractor, so he was a 4th generation mason. I'm a 5th generation mason. So just a lot of the construction world. Grew up building houses, so I got to just follow Dad around and learn a lot of the construction world. In the sports world, everything from wrestling to football to basketball to baseball. I learned which ones I liked and which ones I didn't, and kind of flourished in the football world. I was a first-team All-State receiver at Horlick High School in Racine, where I followed up and coached for 5 years, and then I coached for Union Grove High School for 5 years, played for the Racine Raiders for 13 years, opened a couple doors. I played 9 years of arena football. Very involved in the outdoors, hunting, fishing, 4-wheelers, dirt bikes, pretty much anything that would get my heart beating fast, I loved. So kind of went off into that world, and it had a lot of good things and a lot of bad things came with that. So
yeah, it's good. Man, one of the things that I love, you said right there at the very beginning, dad to 5, 4 of them being girls. With me having 2 girls myself, you're ahead of me in that journey right now. So as time progresses on, I'll be looking to you going, all right, how do I get past this? Because things are getting crazy. Boys are coming after my daughter, so how do I scare them away like you did? Because I know that you'll be doing that.
We just call Josh.
There you go, just call Josh, yeah.
He's been through it all.
That's right. Yeah, dude, I love just the solid background, the sports history, all that kind of stuff. I think there's a lot of team rolled into what you talked about. Yeah. And so with us talking about the importance of having people in our lives, that community aspect, I'm going to assume that we'll hear a little bit of that come into play as well. Yeah. But hey, let me ask you this question. I know you for being a sold out follower of Jesus, but what would you say would be some words that would best describe what your life looked like before Jesus?
My life before Jesus, I would have been the popular guy that you would have thought had like the whole world in his hands. You know, it would just appeared that I was successful at sports, always lived in a decent sized home, and always had a nice car and always nice things. And you would have probably thought I was the most happy guy in the world or the most successful guy that a lot of people knew, you know? Mm-hmm. And you would have thought, I mean, a lot of people even said to me, man, I thought you were rich just in every part of your life. Mm-hmm. And that couldn't have been farther from the truth.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. Well, then let's dive into a little bit of the truth there then. Yeah. Diving into friendship and relationships. Again, we're talking to the not yet followers of Jesus. And this step is called, that we're talking about, people are the worst. People are the worst, man. Who needs them? So how would you respond to that? If we needed to rewire that thinking, where do we start? So the idea of where do we start to rethink, man, people aren't necessarily the worst and we need them in our lives?
I think for me, the big switch that kind of went off was I started to look at people as Christ looks at them. And also I started loving people as Christ loved them and Christ sees them. And I think that's kind of when I just had a huge shift in. I always grew up in the church. You know, I was always going to church my whole life. And it was just kind of a Sunday thing. You were nice to people, and I thought that was good. You know, everybody was like, "Yeah, you're a Christian. You're awesome. You're nice to people. You open the door for old ladies, and you know, you do these things." But it's so much deeper than that, and Christ has so much more for you than just that. I think that perspective is just very surface of it's not even a relationship. It's kind of just knowing who Jesus is instead of diving into a relationship with Christ, you know?
Yeah. When did you come to know Jesus?
February 6, 2018 is when I decided to follow Jesus. I came to know Jesus at a very young age. When I was an 18-year-old high school football player, I graduated from high school, and I had this very unfortunate event where somebody was driving around with me and ended up shooting somebody out of my car. And I went to prison for 2 years, and that's when I gave my life to Christ then. I wouldn't say that I was truly following Christ. I think I was kind of in the college atmosphere. Actually, I was probably an elementary Christian, where I was just learning about the Bible, learning about who Christ was, and I didn't decide to follow him until 18 years after that. So it was quite a journey for me I went through just a lot of different things, a lot of different things that I depended on, almost like my family. I depended on my parents at a young age to kind of provide everything for me and keep the anxiety and depression and all that stuff that comes with life. I kind of reached out to them as, hey, Mom, I'm hurting, pretty much any child does. And then I would say, when I went to prison, I kind of graduated to like the high schooler, where it was just like, just a different perspective. I'm kind of in depth a little bit more. I'm starting to date him a little bit, but I'm just very casually, it's just like, oh yeah, like, dude, this is a really hard day, so I'm going to come to you today, And then other days it'll be like, yeah, I'm doing great, like I'm on the mountaintop right now, so I don't really need you. I'm going to put you to the side. I wouldn't say that, but that's how my actions were. So that's how I look at it now, And then kind of got to the college through when I got out of prison. I was dealing with some alcohol, some drugs. I was dealing with the arena football lifestyle, man. It was fast. It was kind of what the world tells you to do. You got the bull by the horns. Everything. You just indestructible in your 20s. So you think that you can just do whatever you want and kind of get away with it. And then it was more of the ask for forgiveness type of mentality from Christ. So that's how kind of like my 20s was. And then I became a father. I had a child out of wedlock. And then now I gave my life to Christ in 2018. And I think that's when I truly decided to marry Christ, and that was kind of the marriage. And now, as you know, and I know, when you're going through marriage, you just constantly got to grow. You constantly got to seek. You got to be vulnerable. You got to be, very, very tender-hearted, but also you have to be sometimes stern and I think that's the relationship with Christ that I have right now, is just growing as kind of a husband and wife mentality,
Yeah. So this life pre-Jesus, pre-walking with the Lord, you've got the teammates that you went to high school with, you had the teammates that you went to college with, you had the teammates that you were doing arena football with. Yeah. So these people that you were in community with that were probably influencing some of your decisions as well.
Yeah.
That helped you along the path that you were on at that time.
Yep.
And then 2018 comes around, and I know you for being with a whole bunch of really awesome dudes now. So my question for you would be, just by talking to the crew of guys that you hang out with, so many of you guys are experiencing some of the best friendships of your life at this point. Probably the case for you, I would imagine. Could you ever have imagined that when you were not yet a follower of Jesus, that you could have friendships like that?
No, absolutely not, because it went against everything that I was taught, everything that the world told me that I should desire and that I should want. It went against. So it was like the farthest thing from my mind, You don't really think about owning a Lamborghini, you know what I mean? You just kind of think that it's out there, and you hear about these things. So no, I never thought about it. And now that I go back as a Christian, and now I have these really fruitful and healthy relationships, now I go back and I try to rekindle the relationships that I had with the people, but they're like, man, you're so much different. What is it about you? And then that opens the door for obviously the Great Commission, right? To make new disciples of Christ, right? So.
Yeah. So what I love about that is this, even in this topic that, sometimes we may feel like that people are the worst. Like you can look at some of the people that you used to hang out with that were influencing some of your decisions. And it's so easy for a not yet follower of Jesus or a new believer of Jesus to say, man, I want nothing to do with those people because they're going to influence me the wrong direction. But you put yourself in community with a whole bunch of solid influences that it actually encourages you to step back into relationship with some of those former guys and not look at people as they're the worst, but as potential with them. For
sure. And I think for me, I made that transition and just speaking life into people instead of always looking at, you don't see the negative things that their negative attributes, the negative things that they do. You just you look at them in a different light. You look at them with Christ's eyes, when you give your life to Christ and he truly enters your heart, there's just this shift that you can't explain. And then as you grow with him, you're loving people as he loved people, and you're seeing people as he sees people, and it just opens a different door for you. You start to feel people's pain. You start to just want to help people, not for your own selfish ambitions, because there's so many people that want to help people because they want to get something out of it, or they want to pat themselves on the back or anything like that. And I think when you truly have a Christ-like heart and you're just out there loving people, it's on display. It's attractive. People love it, and people are drawn to it, and people are just like, man, there's something different about you. It's like you're walking through just a street full of people that are made out of metal, and you're just this most powerful magnet, right? That's what Christ is. When you truly see his love, it's just like, man, you have to walk towards it. It's that bright light that you see on a dark night. You're like, what is that over there? Yeah, it's amazing, man. It's amazing to see what God's done in my life and so many other guys that I've been a part of, and just watch people that, were just broken and just in shambles one day, and the next day they come in, they're joyful. Sometimes it's minutes, and sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's not right away, sometimes it takes growth. For me, it took many, many years. I mean, I went to probably over 600 different Bible studies before I gave my life to Christ, and it was at a funeral. It was, and I watched somebody die very humbly as a Christian, and that's what brought me to Christ. And just to watch somebody in a time that he should have been selfish, worrying about how much time he got to spend with his kids and all these things, and he was worried about the Great Commission, man. It was so powerful. The testimony of that and just watching him walk through that is why I gave my life to Christ and why I decided to follow him.
Man, that's so good. Yeah. That's so good. What advice, when talking about friendships and everything, what advice would you give to a not yet follower of Jesus? I love the example that you gave. You said, we never think about owning a Lamborghini, but we know that it's out there. Yeah. And I think a lot of us, we're desperately in need. We're desiring a solid community of people to be in our lives. And we can look at the world around us and we can think, man, there's no such thing as good community. I got to watch out for myself. I got to do this on my own. So for the not yet follower of Jesus, what advice would you give that person in letting them know, hey, that community is out there and you can upgrade your friendships to have that Lamborghini, if you will?
Yeah, for sure. Well, it's a different type of love, that the people have for you. And when you give your life to Christ and you surround yourself with Christians, everybody's parents said it. You are who you hang around, right? So if you start hanging around with Christians and you start hanging around people that are seeking Jesus, you're going to be seeking Jesus, and obviously you're going to have a lot of fruit that comes from that. So, I think it's just our parents have been indirectly saying it. It's because it's kind of ingrained into our DNA. We're created by God, and God's constantly seeking us. So that little thing inside of us that we all seek is love, right? We all seek to be loved. No matter how prideful or how tough you are, you seek to be loved. And I think the love that Christ can give you, nobody else can give you. And then when you're around people that are loving you like Christ does, it's just an amazing thing. And I try to look at it as when I'm loving people, when I'm loving other Christians, it's so much different because it's almost like you're loving Christ in them, and you're not actually just loving that person. So it brings it to a whole different level. And when you're coming to somebody in an atmosphere of a Christian atmosphere, a Bible study, it's It's not, hey man, how are you doing today? Oh, I'm awesome, dude. Like my day was great. It's like, no, like today was not good, man. My marriage wasn't good. I yelled at my kids. I did this. And you're coming and you're stripping away all that pridefulness, you know, all of those worldly things that we build ourselves up with and pump our chests up. You know, it's like all of that stripped away, and it's just like your heart, you know, that big block that we have, that chastity belt that we have around our hearts freed, you know, when we give Christ our life, and it's just open to that, and you can flourish, you know, you can flourish because you're vulnerable, and there's other men that are there, then they see it, and then that opens the door for other people. And I mean, testimonies are powerful, man. Everybody's got their own testimony, and it's powerful. So
yeah. Community, friendship, being real, like actually being real, is so important for many of us. You alluded to it, man. God designed us. He designed us for relationships. So having the mentality of people aren't the worst. I love what you said. Looking at people as who Jesus is in them and trying to have that relationship through everything else, man, I think is so key. Sam, man, I just want to thank you for coming and having this conversation, sharing with everybody else just your experience. Let me encourage you as you continue on the pathway. Underneath this video is tons of resources for you to use. It's our toolkit to you to help you continue growing on your journey and going on this pathway. Know that we are always here for you. So if you ever have any questions, feel free to reach out to us. We would love to be able to help out in any way that we can. But let me just say thank you again, Sam, for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
We'll see you guys on the pathway.